Hi, welcome back to the Platinum Yard Hi-Fi and AV review channel. Recently I reviewed Arendal's 1723 1V subwoofer and I said it's the best bang for buck in 2023. Now today we have Arendal's flagship. It's the 2V and it's a giant. It's the Godzilla of subwoofers. Now, I want to talk you through my first impressions when I unboxed these subwoofers. Now I set them up in the exact same place where my 1Vs were previously set up. And I was quite surprised with how big these subwoofers were, especially because they measure only slightly larger than the 1Vs. Now this could be a consequence of Arendal sending me black subwoofers to review because my previous subwoofers were white and my room is white. But I found that my eyes were constantly looking at these subwoofers and they were quite big and imposing and suffocating, and it took me quite a while to get used to them. Here's a shot of the 1723 2V. And here's a shot of the 1723 1V. I also want to let you know my first impressions of the sound. Now, between the flagship and the 1V subwoofer, the sound signature at low listening levels was pretty much the same. And this was tested with different types of audio content. I re-listened to some of my favourite live music, along with my favourite R&B music videos, and then later in the day settled down to watch a number of action-packed movies. And what I found was my experience was mostly the same. But when I switched over to gaming, I found that the subwoofers had a little bit more impact. Now I just want to make my statement crystal clear. The 2V is a lot more powerful than the 1V. It has an extra driver and 400 watts more power. So as a result, the subwoofers were turned down by at least 4 dBs on each subwoofer to match the rest of my setup during calibration. So when I talk about impact, I'm actually talking about attack. Gaming revealed that the 2Vs are slightly more aggressive. Now, I don't know how gaming revealed this to me. I don't know. It could be something to do with hitting the trigger and hearing the response. But I found after hearing this, it was something that I noticed throughout my listening experience. So, let's head to Arendal's website and check out the spec and the comparison table. Okay, so we're at Arendal's official website looking at their comparison table. You can also see the specification of the two subwoofers. So the 1V has one 13.8 inch driver and the 2V has two of them. The 2V implements cones on both sides of the subwoofer. This is also known as dual opposed. They both use the same high quality HDF material. The 1V implements an 800 watt RMS amplifier, whereas the 2V implements a 1200 watt amplifier. Now the frequency response is pretty similar. I'm not going to read line by line here. After all, they do both share the same driver. You can see here that the 2V hits 1 or 2 Hz deeper. This is most likely down to the fact that the cabinet's a bit bigger and the 1200 watt amplifier provides way more reserves. They both use a slot port design. The slot on the 2V is slightly larger by 5 cm in width and 1.5 cm in height. Now let's talk about dimensions with the rubber feet. The The 1V comes in at 63 centimeters tall, 45 centimeters wide and 55 centimeters deep. The 2V is 71 centimeters high, 50 centimeters wide and 60 centimeters deep. The 1V weighs 48 kilograms and the 2V weighs 60. So looking at the numbers, the dimensions aren't dramatically different, but the 1V is already quite a big subwoofer, which in turn made me quite sensitive to the additional size of the 2V. Okay, so after spending some time with the Arendal 1723 2V flagship subwoofers, I've come to realise that I'm going to have to turn things up. I mean, turn the volume right up to set them apart from the 1V. Now this means that I'm going to have to be brave, because in my review, when I reviewed the 1V, I said I was worried about my neighbours. But things are going to have to get crazy for me to really hear the difference.
Ready.
Let's go!
Get it to do that.
I think he likes me.
It's on your face! Get it off! Get it off!
First to the egg.
Okay, the best way I can describe the feeling of these subwoofers is unlimited. It feels like you have unlimited bass and you can turn these things up and your house will give away way before these subwoofers will. You're worried about your plates, you're worried about things in your kitchen, you're worried about your neighbours. It just leaves you pretty beaten up and shaken up. Now these subwoofers are not a joke, and I want to talk about the dual opposed drivers. Now, I don't really come across dual opposed drivers getting the praise I think it deserves, especially in this case. People often talk about the anti-vibration qualities, but nothing more. But I found that the drivers coupled with my room better than the 1V, especially at louder listening levels. And I would say that this benefit was more beneficial to movies than music, giving you more of that omnidirectional bass, almost tricking your brain to hear bass from below your feet and beside you and all over the place. I would say at reference levels and above is where this subwoofer sets itself apart from the 1V. Another thing that's more noticeable at loud levels is that the 2V stops and starts a little bit quicker than the 1V. This is where that added attack and focus comes from. I said earlier that the 2V feels a little bit more aggressive, and indeed it is. And I'm not a speaker designer, but I think this is attributed to the dual opposed drivers. I get the feeling that there's something going on inside the cabinet that's creating a little bit of tension between the two speakers, thus making the speakers stop and start just that little bit quicker. So whilst reviewing this subwoofer, I often ask myself, who is this subwoofer for? Now if the 1723 1V didn't exist, I would say this subwoofer is for everyone, because at the time of this video, you can get this subwoofer for £2,500. And if I'm honest, this subwoofer competes with brands that are double the price. So here's where it gets interesting, because the 1V does exist for approximately £1,000 less, which means that the 2V would only be the right choice for those with ultra large spaces or extreme bass heads, because it's really hard for me to imagine anybody that would need more bass than what these subwoofers can provide. Now to conclude and wrap this up with a quick synopsis, Arendal have created two fantastic subwoofers, and it's pretty easy for me to recommend the 1V or the 2V for the price. The sound signature is pretty similar across the line, which is great, so the only thing you need to consider when you're making your purchase is the size of your room. The 2V is a little bit larger than the 1V, and the 1V is already a big subwoofer, but once you get into the high performance of the 2V, the size becomes justified. Both subwoofers are packed with smart features. You can access the settings at the back of the subwoofer, or you can use Arendal's mobile app. If you want to know more about the mobile app, check out my review on the Arendal 1723 1V, where I go into some more detail. So as always, I want to thank you for watching, and if you have any thoughts or questions, leave a comment below and I will make sure I get back to you. And if you've enjoyed today's video and you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe to my channel.